Infinity War is almost here, about a good month away now, so it gives us enough time to have the opportunity to talk about the phase one of the MCU, in which cases we're going to be talking about Iron Man, the Incredible Hulk, Thor, Captain America, and of course the first Avengers film. So let's get started here, you guys, because we have a lot to talk about here on Marvel's phase one. First off, we're going to talk about Iron Man. This is the one that started it all. We have the director of the film, which is Jon Favreau, and starring, of course, Robert Downey Jr., the one that really put him back on the map here. And then we've got Gwyneth Paltrow, Terrence Howard, and Jeff Bridges. This is the one that really first started developing the MCU, even though it was never even announced, and it came to a big surprise having to see all the little Easter eggs that were presented into the film, and including the ending credit scene where we had the first appearance of Sam Jackson as director Nick Fury. And of course, having to hear about S.H.I.E.L.D. and then the Avengers initiative, it was all coming together, but it was all in the background, following along with the movie itself, having to get this huge introduction of Iron Man and getting to know more about Tony Stark and the beginning of this whole storyline universe. So it's very interesting having to see, because this is not a hero that most people were very familiar with. They may have known the name of Iron Man, but they didn't know the storyline. They didn't know who the character was. They didn't even know that it was a story development into a shared universe. So it was very interesting having to see that, because we knew all about Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four and Hulk and so on and so forth, but yet Iron Man was never really that familiar with so many superhero fans. But this is the one that really brought a lot of attention to so many fans now today, having Iron Man being part of their number one superhero list, especially the movie itself being an incredible film. And on Rotten Tomatoes, they rated this movie a 94%, which is a very high ranking. And for me, I gave it an 85%. And I'm trying to be very fair. It's a really great MCU movie, a superhero movie, and a movie itself. And it's very favored by many people, including me. But I feel like an 85% felt more of a more suitable rating for me. It's not the perfect superhero film, but it is by far an awesome movie. An awesome movie. I'm really fond of this film, and I can never get enough of Iron Man, having to watch him numerous times. And he's made so many appearances now within the MCU that we can never get enough of Iron Man. So let's go ahead and jump on to the next MCU film here on the list today. The Incredible Hulk. This one is directed by Louis Leterrier, and it stars Edward Norton as the Incredible Hulk. We got Liv Tyler in here, William Hurt, Tim Roth, and Tim Blake Nelson. And this one is the second movie of the MCU, but not many people even knew about it as well either, until there was an end credit scene, well, actually more of a mid credit scene, to where we see William Hurt's character at the ending, and we get a special appearance of none other than Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Tony Stark. And that brought a huge surprise to the audiences who were watching this movie in the theaters, coming to the conclusion that this is something big that they're developing, something huge. But the story itself alone of the Incredible Hulk is actually more of a better film rather than the other film with back in 2003 with Eric Bana, and the Ang Lee movie. That was a terrible film, but this one really brought it back up a lot. I really did love the love romance between Edward Norton and Liv Tyler's characters, Bruce Banner and Betty Ross. They did a really great connection together. They worked together very well. And William Hurt's character, I think that he did a tremendous job of being Thunderbolt Ross. I think that he did really great. Having to know that we see him again later on in the MCU, And I would really have loved to see more of Edward Norton. I love Mark Ruffalo's portrayal as the Incredible Hulk, but I really did prefer more of Edward Norton. I really did feel more of him portraying Bruce Banner at a more better perspective and being the Incredible Hulk. This is such a great movie. I hate the fact that we cannot see any more conclusions to the story because it's still owned by Universal, and as we all know that the MCU is owned by Disney, so it's a complication having to get him to develop his own storyline within his own movies. But it's a great film. I had a lot of fun with it. I love the ending fight scenes with Hulk and the Abomination. And I think Tim Roth was a brilliant villain in this movie. And I think that these guys clash at each other very well. It's a great superhero / monster flick, and it's just so great. I had a lot of fun with this movie. It's so fun to watch, and it is one of my favorites of the MCU. In general. So on Rotten Tomatoes, they gave this movie a 67%, which it is a percentage that I wasn't really highly fond of. I mean, it's more borderline. It's more of a borderline film, but for me, I'd have to like it a little bit more to give it a 73%. So that was my rating for that, because I really did enjoy The Incredible Hulk more than more people anticipated it to be. But otherwise, that's my ratings for The Incredible Hulk. What did you guys think? You can always leave a comment in the section in the bottom, and we can have an awesome conversation regarding towards this movie or any film in general within the MCU. So let's jump on to the next film, you guys. So let's talk about Iron Man 2. So this one we have the returning director Jon Favreau, and along with the star of the film Robert Downey Jr., Gwyneth Paltrow, and we get the villain of the movie, which is what's his name, Mickey Rourke, and we got Sam Rockwell into the mix, and then we didn't get Terrence Howard returning into the movie, but we got him replaced by Don Cheadle, and he's going to be playing War Machine, and I think that Don Cheadle did a more brilliant performance rather than having to get Terrence Howard into the mix, and sometimes when you get actor changes, it kind of confuses me because it brings me to wondering, how this movie would have been like if we had the original actor playing this character or not. But other than that, I feel like this is a really great MCU film as well. Not many people were very fond of it because it seemed to my understanding, that it was very much scattered, that there were so many things going on at the same time that none of the movie made any sense. But for me, I feel like Iron Man 2 was a really great film, and is a little bit better than the first film. Even though I love the first film, the second film I find very much more entertaining with, and I really do love the interactions between Gwyneth Paltrow and Robert Downey Jr.'s characters. They're always fun to watch. They're always arguing, and it's just so entertaining, so much fun to at least go a little bit down to earth and experience different type of relationships within these types of movies. So it's just so fun. And we also get Scarlett Johansson into the movie, and a little bit more of Samuel L. Jackson being Director Fury into this as well. So it kind of gives you more of an expansion as to what this universe is leading you towards. And I really did like Mickey Rourke's villainy into this. He's a very well familiarized actor, and which I'm pretty sure is to the reasons as to why he was chosen to be a villain into this movie. And I think that he did very well in this. He was a very great villain, and I really love to see more of what he could have done into this, even though he is only into this movie very little. So on Rotten Tomatoes, they gave it a 73%, which is higher than I anticipated it would be. So I gave it a little higher up since I enjoyed this movie very much enough to give it an 87%. So that's my ratings for Iron Man 2. Let's go ahead and jump on to the next film. So let's talk a little bit of Thor. So this one is directed by Kenneth Branagh. We've got Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman, Tom Hiddleston, Anthony Hopkins, Idris Elba. And this one is more of what you would call a story defining a fish out of the barrel. And this is pretty much Thor, who is beginning his beginning stages of becoming king, and he's not very much to the clearer understandings of becoming that king. So Anthony Hopkins pretty much he exiles him out of his home world Asgard onto Earth, which is in the middle of New Mexico. And as you all remember from the end credit scenes of Iron Man 2, we see Agent Coulson coming to where the hammer it has crashed into New Mexico, and they're doing whatever they can to experiment on it and try to lift the hammer. Even Thor himself could not lift it because he's not deemed worthy of it until he learns to become more understanding of becoming that king. This is a very interesting direction as to where we're putting this character into this universe, and a lot of people were very wondering. They were very much wondering as to whether this character was going to work in this universe or not, because even though he did very well within the comic book storyline, they didn't know he was going to work very well cinematically. So, and to where we know now that this movie really does the job well. We all know that the villain Loki is played by Tom Hiddleston is very awesome, and we still see this villain to this day because MCU has a very bad habit of having a really great villain, and Tom Hiddleston happens to have broken that to becoming one of the favoritist villains besides the Joker, betraying onto the big screen. And I love Chris Hemsworth playing Thor. He does a really great job. And Natalie Portman is not very. She's a great actress, but the chemistry between those two, the love chemistry, it's not very familiar. It's not something that you would really agree with. It's not very understanding. So it's a very bad chemistry there. But Thor, the movie itself, is still a great film to watch. And so on Rotten Tomatoes, they gave it a 77%, and for me, I give it a 74%. It's still a great MCU film, and it's one of everybody's favorites, including myself. So that's mine for Thor. What do you guys think? You can always leave a comment in the section down below, and let's jump on to the next film, guys. Captain America, the First Avenger. So this one is directed by Joe Johnston, and it stars Chris Evans as Captain America himself, along with Haley Atwell, Hugo Weaving as the Red Skull, to which I believe that besides Tom Hiddleston playing Loki, I think that Red Skull did a very great job into this, and I wish I could see more of him in the MCU. Hopefully, possibly, maybe in the future. But then we also get Sebastian Stan, and we get Tommy Lee Jones. So this is a very interesting movie because we also get Stanley Tucci into the mix here. And I love on how Chris Evans portrays this character very well, because we all know him before as the Human Torch, and for me, I highly doubted that this was going to actually at all work out, but to me, I can tell now that it does very well within the MCU. And Captain America is very much the Superman of this whole thing. And it's based back into the 1940s, and we get to see his origins as to becoming the first superhero of all time. And I love the portrayal of this, and I love on how that it's based in the 1940s. You get the feel of it. You come to a clear understanding, and you really do enjoy this very well, highly. And I really do feel like this one, it has the introduction of the first Infinity Stone, which is the Cosmic Cube, the Tesseract, and so the Red Skull uses it to his advantage to develop weapons out of it. And so I really do like the fact that this is a movie that is part of the MCU, and especially part of Phase 1, because it really does gives us the introduction of the Avenger universe. So on Rotten Tomatoes, they gave this movie an 80%, and for me, I highly agree by giving it a little higher ranking of an 85%. So let's jump onto the last movie here, guys. And last on the list is Marvel's The Avengers. This one is directed by Joss Whedon, and we got, of course, the returning cast throughout the whole entire Phase 1 MCU movies of Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, replacing Edward Norton in The Incredible Hulk, we got Jeremy Renner, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hiddleston, Kobe Smulders as Maria Hill, and then now we got Samuel L. Jackson as Director Fury. And this movie is the first movie ever to have all these superheroes come together for the first time into this climactic cinematic movie of the Avengers. And I love having to see all these individual characters have their own unique movies, and then having them all come together, knowing that they are going to come together as a team and go against the Jatari alien race and against Loki as well. And this is a very one of the best movies ever, and I love having to see this movie onto the big screen. It was one of my favorite moments within the whole entire MCU. One of the best ever. I love having to see Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, the Hulk, everybody coming together into this. It was so fun. It was so entertaining. It was so just so great. It was such a great movie. I love this movie so much. And I just had a lot of fun with it. I can never get enough of the Avengers, and I love having to see this movie so much to where it gets me more excited to wanting to see Infinity War as well. And on Rotten Tomatoes, they rated this movie a 92%, and for me, I have to agree with it by giving it a 93%. It is such an incredible movie, and I'm glad that they developed this shared universe and are continuing on with it. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they're going to be developing into the future of the MCU. So that's my review for Marvel's Phase 1 movies. What did you guys think? You can always leave a comment in the section down below so we can have an awesome conversation regarding towards these movies or any movies in particular that you guys like to discuss. So I'm Awesome Joe, and as always, stay awesome. So thanks guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.